myself Shweta Shah. I am your instructor for the subject Computer Organization and Architecture. In this subject we have started Unit 8, that is Input Output Organization. In this unit we are going to see today the topic that is Modes of Transfer. So let me start with the topic Modes of Transfer. The binary information received from an external device is usually stored in a memory for later processing. The information transferred from a central computer into an external device organizes in the memory unit. The data transfer between the central computer and the I/O device may be handled in a variety of modes. Some modes uses the CPU as an intermediate path, and other transfer the data directly into and from the memory unit. So by this way you can use different modes for transferring the data from your I/O device to your CPU. The data transfer to and from the peripheral may be handled by the one of the three possible modes, and these three modes are like programmed I/O mode, interrupt initiated I/O mode, or direct memory access mode. So you can use any of three modes. We will see all of three in details. First one is the programmed I/O. The programmed I/O operations are result of the I/O instruction written in the computer program. Each data item transfer is initiated by the instruction in the program. Usually the transfer is to and from the CPU register and the peripheral. The other instructions are needed to transfer the data to and from the CPU and the memory. The transferring data under the program control requires the constant monitoring of the peripheral by the CPU. So your CPU is going to be used constantly in this mode of transfer. Once the data transfer is initiated, CPU is required to monitor the interface to see when the transfer can again made. Okay, so your CPU is going to be used, and it is up to the program instruction execution in the CPU to keep the close tab on everything that is taking place in the interface unit and the I/O device. So by this way you can use this programmed I/O in which your CPU is constantly being used. Second mode you can use is the interrupt initiated I/O. In the programmed I/O method, the CPU stays in the program loop until the I/O instruction or I/O unit indicates that it is ready for the data transfer. This is the time consuming process since it keeps the processor busy needlessly, and it can be avoided by using the interrupt facility and the special commands to inform the interface to issue an interrupt request signal when data is available from that device, so that the CPU doesn't require to continuously monitor the I/O device whether it has a data to transmit or not. So in the meantime, the CPU can proceed to execute another program. The interface meanwhile keep the monitoring the device. So this way you can use this interrupt initiated I/O. When the interface determines that the device is ready for the data transfer, it generates an interrupt request to the computer, and upon detecting the external interrupt signal, the CPU momentarily stops the task it is processing and the branches to the service program to process the I/O transfer and then return to the task it was originally performing. So by this way you can use this interrupt initiated I/O. Third method of transferring is the direct memory access. The transfer of data under the programmed I/O is between the CPU and the peripheral. In direct memory access, the interface transfers the data into or out of the memory unit through the memory bus without using the CPU. The CPU initiates the transfer by supplying the interface with the starting address and the number of words needed to be transferred, and then execute the task. The CPU initiates the transfer by supplying the interface with the start address and the number of words needed to be transferred, and then proceed to execute the other task. So you doesn't require the CPU work here for the transfer operation. When the transfer is made, DMA requests the memory cycle through the memory buses. So your memory cycles are used only. Another thing we have to see is when the request is granted by the memory controller, the DMA transfer the data directly into the memory, and the CPU merely delays its memory access operation to allow the direct memory I/O transfer. Since the peripheral speed is usually slower than the processor speed, the I/O memory transfer are infrequent as compared to the processor access to the memory. Besides that, we can also use some I/O processor, that is known as an input-output processor. The many computer combines the interface logic with the requirement of the direct memory access into one unit, and that is known as an IOP. The IOP can handle many peripherals through the DMA and the interrupt facility. In such a system, a computer is divided into three separate modules, that are the memory unit, CPU unit, and the IOP unit. So you can use this IO. So let me further see in detail the programmed IO. In programmed IO method, the IO device does not have direct access to the memory. An example of the data transfer from the IO device through an interface unit in the CPU I have shown over here. In this, CPU is connected with some IO device by some means of some interface, and that interface is connected with the CPU with the data bus, and with the IO device with the IO bus. Here for the IO device we have used the handshaking mode of transfer. So here we have two signals, that is data valid and second one is the data accepted. So the CPU is connected with the data bus and the address bus, and it is providing two control signals, that is IO read and IO write. When the byte of data is available, the device places a valid line in the IO bus and enables its data. When the interface accepts the byte into data register and then enables the data exception line. So the interface sets the bit in the status register that we will refer to as F or the flag bit. So here we have used this F bit, that is known as a flag bit, to represent your data, and that flag bit is your status flag. The device can now disable the data valid line, but it will not transfer another byte until the data exception line is disabled by this interface. So the program is written for the computer to check the flag in the status register to determine if a byte has been placed in the data register by the IO device or not. This is done by the reading status register into a CPU register and checking the value of the flag bit after each and every instruction. Once the flag is cleared, the interface disables the data accept line and the device can then transfer the next byte. So the flowchart for the program must be written for the CPU as shown over in this figure, and here we have assumed that the device is sending the sequence of byte that must be stored in the memory. So it will start from the reading the data from the register, checking the flag bit. If the flag bit is 1, that means your status flag is 1, then they read the data from the status register and they transfer this data into the memory and check for the another task. If it is completed, then you can continue, then CPU can continue for the next task. But if it is not completed, then it will further check for the register. We can represent it like this. The transfer of each byte requires these three instructions. First one is the reading the status register. Second one is the check the status of the flag bit and the branch to the step 1 if not set, and branch to the step 3 if it is step. Then it will read the data from the register, and each byte is read into CPU register and then transferred into memory with the store instruction. So by this way, a common IO programming task to transfer the block of word from the IO device to store them into memory buffer, and for each transfer it will require the CPU. By this way you can use this programmed IO. But this disadvantage of this method is that your CPU is continuously being used for this transfer. So second method we can use is the interrupt initiated IO. In the program initiated IO, the CPU stays in the program loop until the IO unit indicates that it is ready for the transfer. This is a time-consuming process since it keeps the processor busy needlessly. It can be avoided by using the interrupt facility and the special command to inform the interface to issue the interrupt request signal when the data are available from the device. In this meantime, CPU can proceed to execute the another program. The interface meanwhile keep on the monitoring the device. So this way we can use this interrupt initiated IO. When the interface determines that the device is ready for the data transfer, it generates the interrupt request to the computer. While the CPU is running its program, it does not check the flag. However, when the flag is set, the computer is momentarily interrupted from the processing with its current program and informed to the fact that the flag has been set. And the CPU deviates from its what it is doing to take care of the input or output transfer. After the transfer is completed, the computer returns to the previous program to continue what it was doing before the interrupt. So by this way you can use the interrupt initiated IO. In this, the CPU responds to the interrupt signal by storing the return address from the program counter into the memory stack and then control branch to the service routine that process the required IO transfer. The way that the processor chooses to the branch address of the service routine varies from one unit to another unit. In non-vector interrupt, the branch address is assigned to the fixed location in the memory, while in a vector interrupt, the source that interrupts the supplies the branch information to the computer, and the information is called as a vector interrupt. In some computers, the interrupt vector is the first address of the IO routine. In other computer, the interrupt vector is the address that points to the location in the memory where the beginning address of the IO service routine is stored. So it can be vectored or it can be non-vectored. Okay, and in vector interrupt, you have to provide the location where you have to store your return address. So we are ending our today's session over here. If you have any query, then you can contact me.